On behalf of the Visual Arts Department, I want to welcome everyone to our discussion today with Bill Brubaker. My name is Joyce Jewell. I'm a professor in the Visual Arts Department, and I had the distinct pleasure of organizing this show with Bill. And I want to publicly thank him and Freddie for their generous loan of their this portion of their collection, which they refer to as family members. So when you put family members on loan, we're especially grateful that you trusted us with them. Today I've asked Francine Farr, who is our distinguished professor of African art and art appreciation, to introduce Bill. In the past, I have collaborated on 6 exhibitions. I counted them up last night, Francine, drawing on her vast knowledge and expertise that includes specialties in African art, African currency, arts of the Pacific, and contemporary art. Francine has had an extensive career that includes teaching and curating exhibitions in the United States and abroad. She's published many scholarly articles and produced a number of videos as well. I know that MC is well known for representing 160 countries. What I didn't realize until last night was that Francine's visited 40 of them. She doesn't just write about art, she travels to see it firsthand, which I think is admirable. She and Bill both share a deep appreciation for the art of Haiti, which, where Francine once worked at the Musée d'Art Haitien du Collège Saint-Pierre, Port-au-Prince, Haiti. In 2007, it was Francine who introduced me to Bill and Freddie, took me to their home, which gives new meaning to the phrase, a house filled with art, because it is literally filled with art, from the floor molding to the ceiling molding. It's all art. In fact, when you walk in the entranceway, there are masks covering the wall to your left, and when you go into the living room, there are paintings, textiles, and sculptures decorating every surface. In fact, as I backed up to sit down, I realized I almost sat in the lap of a wooden life-size figure, which was quite intimidating, but I caught myself. I don't think you knew about that. I came close. The planning of this building was well underway when we were doing that show, so I was already looking forward to the day when we would have this beautiful, spacious venue where we could display more of the collection, and this time the Latin American collection, and that day is finally here. So join me in welcoming Francine.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Bill Brubaker is a journalist based in Washington. He was a staff writer for the Washington Post for 23 years, and his work has appeared in dozens of publications, including Sports Illustrated and Smithsonian Magazine. Bill wrote 2 cover stories for the Smithsonian last fall, one on the impact of the January 2010 earthquake on Haiti's artist community, the other on a scientist who has devoted her life to saving the orangutans of Borneo. Bill has won 35 journalism awards, and his articles were twice nominated by the Washington Post for a Pulitzer Prize. He and his wife, Freddie, a nurse who is the director of a hospital emergency department, have traveled to more than 75 countries in search of amazing experiences and folk art. In their spare time, the Brubakers have started a business that sells silkscreen movie posters from Cuba, which is another of their collecting interests. The last time that Bill was here at the Takoma Park campus was about 4 years ago. We are thrilled and honored to have you back again. So if we could just give him a warm and welcoming round of applause.
Thanks so much, Professor Farr. And it is indeed a privilege to be here today in this fabulous art center run by just a wonderful institution that's got to be the most diverse college in the world. And I guess that's one reason why I'm here today. My wife Freddie and I, as Francine alluded to, are collectors of art from just about everywhere. And a few years ago, as Professor Farr also noted, we were privileged to display a few pieces from our African art collection, and today it's Latin America. And I welcome this opportunity to tell you a little bit about our collection and also the folk art of Latin America. In my view, folk art has two components. There's the folk, and then there's the art. And the art we collect surely has helped us better understand the folk. And that is the communities of people that we have encountered and visited in many places around the world. For example, tapestries such as this one are worn by women in indigenous communities in northeastern Peru, in the Amazon region of Peru, and they're made by the Shipibo people. They're used as clothing for Shipibo women and also for decorative purposes. And this tapestry is made from natural cotton, and it's colored with dyes from vegetables as well as mahogany bark, which I think is really cool. The thing about it is it's not only a utilitarian piece that's used as a garment, but it's also a work of art. And the reason is, and that brings it into the folk art realm, because the designs on this piece are hand-drawn, and they represent the Shipibo relationship with something called ayahuasca. And ayahuasca is a jungle brew that I am told has psychedelic effects. And the designs in this tapestry relate to symbols that, I am told, are commonly seen by people who are on this ayahuasca, shall we say, journey. Or as people said in the 60s, trip. Well, my wife, Freddie, and my daughter, Gabriella, who's a teenager, we were in Peru a couple of years ago, and we were offered the opportunity to spend an evening in a jungle community with a shaman drinking ayahuasca, but we passed on the opportunity. The whole idea seemed a little bit risky because we were pretty far out from a place from traditional medicine, and we just didn't want to take any chances. Plus, I didn't think it would be a really setting a good example for my daughter if we were on an ayahuasca trip during vacation. So instead of spending an evening with the shaman, we bought pieces such as this, which gave us some idea of not only the Shipibo culture, but the ayahuasca experience. And my interest in folk art began when I made my first trip to the Caribbean in the 1970s. I was living in Miami, which is my hometown. And in college, I didn't have any money to spend on traveling, so I waited until I graduated from college and began working as a journalist. And once I began traveling, I was just totally addicted. And I ended up spending all of my money traveling to third world countries. And in Miami, it was a great opportunity because I was just an hour or two by plane from so many interesting places in the Caribbean. And more interesting, than, in my view, than visiting cities such as Las Vegas or even Paris. Well, fast forward to today, my wife and I have, as Francine mentioned, have been to about 75 countries in the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Europe. And over the past 17 years, our daughter has joined us on every trip. Gabriella actually prefers Latin America because she's Latina. She was born in Paraguay, with a country from which she was adopted. And Freddie and I never had really a grand plan for collecting. We just started traveling. And as we traveled, our interest grew in learning about different cultures and buying examples of artwork from those cultures so that when we brought them home, we would actually be living with them. And during the routine of our daily lives, we could live among the creations of the art we bought from villages and jungle villages in Peru, dusty towns in Paraguay, and teeming cities in Haiti. And the pieces we collected at first were modest, befitting our income: small wood carvings and paintings, beaded purses, whatever we could afford that looked good to us and that gave us a connection to the country we had visited. And as we continued working and saving our pennies, we sought out more substantial pieces of folk art, such as this huipil. And a huipil, as many of you know, is a Mayan woman's garment. And this is from the community of Tenejapa in the Mexican state of Chiapas. And this is an especially nice huipil. It's beautifully embroidered, also with colors that are made from natural dyes. And each community in Chiapas, as well as in Guatemala, which is just to the south, has its own unique designs on its wheat peels. So you can actually identify the communities in which people live just by looking at the clothes they wear. In some communities, men also wear traditional clothing, although that's sort of dying out. Most Mayan men nowadays wear jeans and t-shirts, just like we do. Our collection, I believe, celebrates the artistic talents of so many different kinds of artists: weavers, painters, wood carvers, potters, mask makers, doll makers, and graphic artists, such as the ones who designed the Cuban silkscreen posters we also collect. And we now have probably about 2,000 pieces in our collection. Our house is just filled floor to ceiling with art, and no room or wall has been spared. And we even have masks and paintings and silkscreens on our closet doors. And why? Because I think closet doors are boring. And so why not liven them up a little bit? A wonderful thing about collecting folk art is the entree it gives you while you're traveling to a different culture. It allows you to get into El Corazón del Pueblo, which happens to be the title of this exhibit. It gets you into the heart of the community, the heart of the people. And so while we enjoy visiting museums and houses of worship and the natural and historical wonders of the communities that we visit, we especially relish the chance to visit the homes and the workshops of the artists. And these visits give us the opportunity to not only talk to the artists about the pieces they are making and how they make them, but also if we're interested in buying a piece and it hasn't been signed, we say, can you sign it? And can you date it? And that really will help the piece live on, hopefully, but beyond our lives, and give some reference point. Whenever possible, we like to collect pieces that tell a story, especially a personal story. And this is a painting, actually a triptych, that I bought when I was on a reporting trip in Nicaragua in the 1980s. And it was painted by a Managua woman named Julie Aguirre. And the painting shows Julie and two of her friends. You can see on the left, that's Julie in the front and her friends in the background. And they had all just lost their husbands. It's a painting about a true story. Their husbands were soldiers for the Sandinista rebel army, and they were in a war in Nicaragua against the National Guard of then President Anastasio Somoza. So the painting isn't titled, but we call it War Widows, and it's one of my favorites. Sometimes collecting isn't really an easy business, especially in terms of transporting the larger pieces, and these guys are pretty large, they're probably about this high, back from some far-flung place in a safe manner so that they won't be all split apart when they come home. We found this 6-member band, and you can see 3 of them there, on a day when we were actually leaving Paraguay that day of our flight to Bolivia. And these guys were in a village about an hour from the airport. But the shopkeeper who we bought them from, these 6 pieces, didn't have any packing material. So we had to make a decision, are we going to just like wing it? And so we did. And that's what we do a lot of times. We just scrounged up some cardboard and packed them as best we could, hurriedly hoping that they would be able to arrive safely in Bolivia, about 2 hours away. And when they arrived in Bolivia, we crated them properly, and so that they would survive the journey to their new home in Washington. And they all arrived with smiles on their faces. And they just told me a few minutes ago that they're really happy to be here at the King Street Gallery. And you can see how crazy I am. I talk to my folk art friends. But part of the thrill of collecting is the quest to find pieces that are rare, or at least hard to get your hands on. And silkscreen movie posters from Cuba certainly meet that definition. Well, shortly after Fidel Castro came to power in 1959, the Cuban government decided to nationalize pretty much everything. They nationalized the film industry, they nationalized the movie theaters. and the Cuban government began producing a lot of homegrown films, while also importing films from all over the world. A lot of them were from the Eastern Bloc, from the Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, but many others were from Western Europe and the United States. And in each case, the Cuban Film Institute commissioned an artist to produce a 20 by 30-inch silkscreen poster to announce the film. And the designers were then, and they are today, an eclectic bunch. Some are schooled, some are unschooled, some are very formal, some are very folky. And by all accounts, in a country where freedom is often in short supply, Cuba's graphic artists are given broad latitude to illustrate their posters as they see fit. This is a poster from an animated film in the 1980s called Vampiros en la Havana, Vampires in Havana. And this may be the most famous Cuban film poster, just people just like it. And it depicts a relatively benevolent vampire smoking a Cuban cigar and wearing a traditional guayabera shirt. I was actually going to wear a guayabera shirt today, but the weather out there is very on Havana. And here's a poster that was made for an award-winning 1990s film, Strawberry and Chocolate. And to those of you who have not seen it, you should see it, by the way. It's about a very cultivated gay guy named Diego who falls in love with a younger straight guy who's a diehard communist and who has lots of prejudices. And they met at a famous ice cream parlor in Havana where one man ordered chocolate and the other ordered strawberry. And here's another of my favorite Cuban silkscreens by a painter and graphic artist named Raul Martinez. He's passed away 10, 15 years ago. This poster was made for a 1960s movie called Lucia. And it's the story of three women named Lucia who lived at three different times in Cuban history, beginning in the 1890s during the Spanish-American War. When you think of Haiti, you think probably of disasters and pandemics and political instability. But Haiti is internationally known, and deservedly so, for its primitive style paintings and its beautifully crafted metal sculptures that are made out of discarded oil drums. And examples of Haitian art can be found in museums around the world, as well as in more humble venues such as my house. As a long-time visitor to Haiti, I have learned, and Professor Farr can attest to this, that art is an enormous source of pride to the Haitian people. I was just there a few months ago, and I was there a few months after the earthquake, and from the people who are still living in tents across from the National Palace to the elite who have largely run the country since it became independent from France 200 years ago, it's a source of pride. I first visited Port-au-Prince in 1977 as a young journalist who was living in Miami. And while I was there, I snagged an interview with the president, Jean-Claude Duvalier, who's known as Baby Doc. And at the end of our chat, Duvalier asked me, "How old are you?" He was just making small talk. And I said, "I'm 26. And he smiled and he said, "Oh, I'm 26 too. We both have a great future ahead of us." Well, as many of you know, Baby Doc was run out of Haiti a few years later amid allegations of large-scale corruption. And as many of you also know, he recently decided to return to Haiti, which was, in my opinion, a huge miscalculation on his part because he's now facing charges of widespread, large-scale corruption. Anyway, it was on this trip in 1977 that I discovered Haitian art and folk art while walking through the Iron Market in Port-au-Prince. And it's a wonderful old building where Haitians can buy anything. You can buy anything from a hammer to a hog in the Iron Market. And I picked up a few paintings done on flour sacks. They cost $10 each, and that's how I started collecting. And I've been back in Haiti as a journalist 2 or 3 times in the past year or two, and once a few weeks after the earthquake in January 2010 to write a story about Haitian art for Smithsonian. And over 9 days on that trip, I spent lots of time with lots of amazing people, including the guy who did this painting, Profet Dufaux. Very famous, well-known Haitian artist. He's now 87 years old, and in the weeks after the earthquake, he invited me to his home. His home at the time was a crude tent made of sticks and a blue tarp donated by USAID. His real house had been badly cracked, and he was afraid to live in it. But so he was outside his tent with an easel painting. He was still working. It was as if nothing had happened. And while I was talking to Dufaux outside his tent, he disappeared for a few moments and then came back, and he was carrying a few paintings. Not this one, but a few similar paintings. And it was obvious that he wanted to sell them to me. And I said, well, how much? And he said, oh, $4,000 each. Well, I had about $50 in my pocket, so I had to decline. But I was just delighted as I left his house that he was open for business, as so many other Haitian artists were. I wanted to ask Professor Farr, because she lived in Haiti for a year. She was an integral member of the Haitian art community. Maybe if she could give us a few words on why Haitian artists have such resilience in the face of so much difficulty. It's the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, and yet they continue to produce amazing work such as this.
All I can say is that I think the Haitians live to make art, that they use art as their shield, their sustenance, their life itself. When everything else is falling apart, art gives them a place to survive, to be inspired, to live another day, to feel good about themselves, good about their country. And they can make art out of anything, out of thin air. It's just truly amazing because it is within them. I think they just grab what is within them. And I think certainly in the worst of times is when they can go deep and pull out something amazing. Bill and I were just chatting about the film posters from Cuba and the film industry, and Haiti has no film industry, no theaters even. Right. And I think that the contrast is what having none of these very complex media to work with because of conditions politically and the Mother Nature, all kinds of problems. They dig deeper, the stories that they're just handed down from Africa, the oral traditions, the lives that they lead, just survival and triumph over very just day-to-day things, allows them to say something really, really powerful.
And this painting by Dufaux, he does this theme a lot, and he calls it My Imaginary City. Right. And his imaginary city is his hometown, and it's a city on the south coast of Haiti called Jacmel. City with lots of beautiful architecture, some of which was destroyed in the earthquake. And he has this imaginary city where tiny people are just going up and down the mountain, and there's a beautiful bay in Jacmel. And he's been doing paintings such as this since he was in his 20s. And,
well, he started, I found out doing a little research, he started as a young child, about 4. He had a very unkind stepmother, apparently, who he had to retreat into his art to find himself and a little comfort. And I think
how about a wicked stepmother?
That's right. That's right. A wicked, yeah. Unkind is how it was put, I guess, to make her a little nicer.
Right.
But wicked, yeah, wicked might be.
Juice up the story a little bit.
Yeah, juice up.
Right.
Wicked, right.
So tell the story. I didn't know this.
Yeah, well, I just found out myself, so that's why I'm not making it a little bit more colorful. But it certainly just spoke for his individual experience and just the experiences of so many artists and Haitians, where they have to suffer from so many things. And art is the place, the means of finding some solace and some triumph over adversity. And they all become, they inspire each other, I believe, also, as a group of artists. And almost everyone is an artist, in fact. You just formal artists, professional artists, ad hoc, under all conditions, earthquake in the tent, you know, open for business and producing. And they have sort of a system where they will train young artists to work with them in a workshop, producing sometimes the same thing like Profet Dufaux. But it is a system. It's not haphazard. It is sort of an African tradition of apprenticeship and then trying to produce as much as possible. And often things that are more positive and inspiring, like this imaginary city of.
And a lot of voodoo themes, which this does not have any voodoo themes.
No, and not everyone is a voodoo practitioner in Haiti. Right. Some really just make no association. Think you know, rather just keep it separate. Those who do it can do it, and those who do not do not. Some voodoo practitioners have art that's on display, like the Veve flags in the show. Yves Telemaque, really very noted Veve flag maker. Profet Dufaux is not. There are others who are not. I think Ducasse, the maternity ward painting, he was not a voodoo practitioner.
We're going to put that up.
Yes, right here,
there,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, and looking at more of his work, I realized that he had a formal education, Ducasse, and served as an agricultural agent for the Haitian government, traveling all over the country and to the United States. And when he lost his position as the agricultural agent, he became an artist, took it up as a source of income, and seemed to have chosen subjects like this maternity ward in a hospital and football games and certain architectural monuments in Haiti to document Haitian life and accomplishments. I think he saw himself and was painting as a history painter of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, I was amazed. Well, I was amazed, you know, when I went to Haiti about 6 weeks after the earthquake, there was a marketplace set up across from the street from the main hotel where the international media was staying, where CNN was broadcasting live every night. And they just set up this makeshift marketplace, and they were selling paintings and masks and wood carvings, and they were really exploiting in a good way the fact that there were a lot more people in Haiti, you know, from outside. Helping with the relief effort, you know, covering the story for the networks and whatnot, and they were making money. There was a brisk business in selling Haitian paintings across the street from the main hotel. Right. And that's Haitian art. I mean,
that's right. And it's very desirable, very inspiring, very well made, very well crafted, with lots of content, lots that it says.
We're going to talk about. This is a metal piece, and these were created from oil drums, right? Right,
recycled. Like so many materials in Haiti where there isn't store-bought materials and keeping costs down, they recycle everything, literally everything. And these are recycled oil drums that are hammered and flattened out and then cut into these very elaborate, open-worked forms, very silhouette-like, related to African art in its open working, virtuosity, and the stories. Very much an oral tradition is being used here because the stories are very elaborate stories based on like Creole, Haitian Creole, combination of African languages and French and Indian and in the New World mix of Haiti. Very elaborate stories.
And this, the metal work is principally done in a village called Croix des Bouquets.
Right.
And it's about an hour north of Port-au-Prince.
Right, or even less, half an hour, 45 minutes.
And you go there, and everywhere you go, there's people making metal pieces out of their houses, and the more accomplished ones who have gained some international fame, such as Serge Jolimo, who did this piece, have a gallery attached to their house, and with just wonderful stuff like this.
Right. It all started with Georges Liautaud, who was a blacksmith, and he was discovered by the Centre d'Art and DeWitt Peters, which was the beginning of the whole art renaissance in Haiti. I think that was in the, 40s? 40s.
Yep.
And from Georges Liautaud and his success, other artists from the town of Croix de Bouquet began to make other kinds of metalwork with these oil drums, and they taught each other, kind of created workshops. It started to really take off. It's very unique to Haiti, this faire découper, they call it. And certain masters like Serge Jolimo and some of the others, actually Serge Jolimo and I think he learned from Sarussier, Louis Juste, the two artists, Janvier and Sarussier, have pieces on display, and they were the teachers of Jolimo. So this is this apprentice system that still goes on in Haiti of the masters then teaching younger artists, along with establishing a workshop where they can really crank out lots of work so that they can sell lots.
And Francine, what's going on in this piece?
This is the Voodoo Mermaid goddess called La Sirène, and La Sirène and the mermaid is an image that's all over Latin America and certainly in Africa as Mami Wata. The La Sirène is a goddess of wealth and beauty and music, has many different aspects to her personality and to her powers. Vodou practitioners might have a particular association with her, and will have an altar set up, and they will certainly, even if they're not practitioners, they would know about La Sirène and would know the stories and the imagery about her. This one is has two faces and one also at the bottom, a third, three snakes, two that are around the perimeter on the right and top, and a smaller head of a snake at the bottom left. And I think in doing the translation of the titles for this, and then looking at the images, that it's not just literal what you see, the images or the words that go with it. So it's actually sort of like a schizophrenic or a double crossing kind of mermaid, not her benevolent aspect, but rather her more malevolent aspect, where she's kind of quixotic and changing, and you don't know what she's going to do or say, or if you can believe it.
So do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing for me to have this in our house?
I think it's a good thing to have it in your house. Keep her under wraps.
Can I quote you on that?
Yes, you can quote me.
Right.
Yes, it's certainly a really wonderful, elaborate image with the peacock tail patterns and one bird's fan tails toward the bottom, the polka dots, just a tour de force of repoussé work.
Well, thank you very much for your sharing your expertise on
Sure.
Haiti.
Sure, sure.
In closing, I'd like to tell you something else that I really like about folk art, and that's that you can get some really nice examples at affordable prices. This particular mask I picked up in Santiago, a city in the center of the Dominican Republic, and it's a carnival mask, and it's a winter carnival mask, and it's beautifully painted, and it's a devil, and I probably paid about $25 for it. Of course, you bring it up here, and the prices go up if you can find something like that. But if you're traveling and you just keep your eyes open, you can find some wonderful folk art at very affordable prices that are not. This particular piece was not made for the art market. It was not made to be sold to tourists. It was made to be used in a carnival parade. And you talk about. Well, we're jumping back now to another piece that, if you go to Peru, is very affordable. This is a retablo. And the story of these retablos, and they have little doors, is that hundreds of years ago, when the missionaries, the Jesuits and other Catholic missionaries principally, would be traveling around the Andes trying to convert people, they would carry around with them these little boxes with little figures in them. And the figures they would use would be religious figures. They'd have, Christ and the saints and different things. And they'd tell biblical stories with these little boxes. They'd open them up to the indigenous people who were largely illiterate, right? And they would be able to explain, biblical history through these retablos. Nowadays, this was made for the tourist market, for the art market. The figures are sometimes religious and sometimes just tales of daily life, such as this is a mask maker's workshop. Here's another mask maker's workshop, and you can see the mask makers there, surrounded by their wares. The actual figures are made with some type of a secret concoction, including potatoes are actually in it, paste and potatoes, and they're very, very fragile, actually. But you can see the doors on the side, so the original purpose to carry these around and to convert the natives, so to speak, they still keep the same format, when they're making retablos today, so that the doors close. There's a couple of masks you'll see in the exhibit, small Dominican masks, Carnival masks, and I picked them up for $3 each. A true bargain, and we enjoy them in our house every day. So it's not just a question of having to spend thousands of dollars to pick up masterpieces. There's folk art everywhere, and you can find it at flea markets here in the United States. And when you travel, you just keep your eyes open. And the two masks, the two small Carnival masks that are in the exhibit, they're little devils, and they're also from Santiago and Dominican Republic, and they now reside on the door of one of our kitchen cabinets. And so, as I said before, I think some of these doors, like closet doors and kitchen and cabinet doors, are pretty boring, so we just spiced them up a little bit. And I would thank you very much, for your interest in our collection and in Latin American folk art. And Francine and I would be delighted to entertain any questions you have about folk art or collecting or anything else.
Right. You have questions? Yes. I had a few questions myself, but let me let you talk first.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Mama Negra?
Mama Negra is it's a carnival procession in Ecuador, and principally north of Quito, the capital. And typically she will be depicted, and I have not seen it myself, but I've read about it. She'll be depicted in a costume with a mask, and she'll have a parade of companions with her. Do you have some background in Ecuador? I mean, can you add anything to that? Because that's really all I know.
So you have no religious background about that?
I don't know if it has a religious background, Mama Negra. There were African slaves imported to South America, and particularly to the coastal areas. And I suspect that Mama Negra, black mother, and it's a black face on the mask. I suspect that has a relationship to the Africans who lived on the coast and still do live on the coast to this day in Ecuador and in Peru. And certainly there's a large African population in Colombia. I'm sorry, I can't tell you, I can't dig any deeper, and I should know that, but I don't have any more details on that. Yes?
A very small question.
Yes.
How did you bring that wonderful, huge, big metal sculpture home with you?
I found that metal sculpture from a collector in New York City.
Oh, really? You're cheating.
Yeah, not every single piece in this, most of the pieces, I'd say 90% of the pieces in this exhibit I actually collected in the country. But I do look anywhere. I mean, I look from dealers in Europe, I look to dealers in Europe or the United States. And in that particular case, it was still tricky because I had to pay to have it packed. It came from Brooklyn, I think, and I had to have it packed and shipped, and it was expensive to do that. But now, how did it end up from Croix de Bouquet, Haiti,
To Brooklyn.
to Brooklyn?
You don't know.
And I don't know. I mean, this is. I wish I did know because
Interesting.
it would be interesting.
Yeah. And Brooklyn has a very large Haitian population with functioning Vodou temples, very active Haitian community,
Yeah.
as in Canada, in Montreal.
Yes.
I had an observation. I did research on Peruvian textiles in the early 1970s. And at that time, around Ayacucho, which is in southern Peru, the Peace Corps had gone in to help the weavers sell more work. So they made it a lot cheaper. So the yarn was like this big, and they used chemical dyes, aniline dyes, and right away you could tell they were not indigenous designs. So in your exhibit, I was so glad to see that the big tapestry is much finer in its weaving, much better done. And I was in Peru at the time where they were trying to make the transition back to natural dyes, but the weavers I was working with didn't want to use natural dyes because it would show people that they were poor.
Right.
And if they had money, they could buy chemical dyes, so they thought I was asking them to do something horrible.
Well, there's fortunately, there's a handful of people out there, weavers, in Peru, in Ayacucho, where we actually collected those pieces. And it's the Sulca family, S-U-L-C-A, and they're committed to keeping the traditions alive in terms of natural dyes. To me, it makes all the difference in the world. Just the idea that these dyes were made from vegetables and insects in some cases.
The cochineal.
Exactly, exactly.
Cochineal is the insect that's dried and produces red.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing thing.
They're the same dyes that were used 3,000 years ago.
Right, such a long tradition from Peruvian Paracas textiles, just very distinguished tradition of weaving.
But I think it is a dying art. Just from our travels, I mean, in Mexico, for example, it's very hard to find natural dyes in anything.
Right.
In the state of Chiapas, which is right next to Guatemala, it's one of the poorest, maybe the poorest state in Mexico. There's a cooperative of weavers in this wonderful colonial town. If you ever get a chance to go there, go there. It's San Cristobal de las Casas. It's delightful. Yeah. And this cooperative is just basically dedicated to keeping the high standards of weaving high, and lots of natural dyes. And you're right. You look at the pieces and you can tell right away. Whether it's just some synthetic piece or whether it's the real thing. Yes.
You mentioned that you really enjoy the interaction you get with people and what comes with kind of folk art. But how do you manage that with language barriers, or are you multilingual? And two, do you keep in touch with any of these artists?
Great question. First of all, I speak some Spanish, but I'm not fluent. But I speak enough Spanish to have a conversation with somebody, break the ice, ask questions. How did you make this? How long have you been doing this? I mean, I can. As a journalist, I would never use my Spanish to interview anybody because I'm not fluent, right? And I would be risk making a mistake. But as a traveler, I'm fine in Spanish. But generally, if I'm in a country where I have no fluency or no knowledge of a language, I have a guide. And guides are easy to find. You just hotel you're staying at. You just there's always someone there who speaks English, and they're just delighted, you know, to take you out, not only to make some extra money, but to show you their community. So I'll have a guide with me, and while we're on the way to try to find artists, I'll explain to him, you know, what my wife and I will explain to him what we like to do. You know, we'd like to go visit some artists, and we may know of some artists from having read books. We may want to go find Joe Blow in some little village, and that's always an adventure because nobody really knows where Joe Blow lives. So we have to keep asking Joe Blow. We find Joe Blow's aunt on this side of the road, and she says, "Oh, Joe Blow is probably in church, or you know, he's in the market today." And you know, you make a left at the church and a right turn at the clump of palm trees. You know, and we find him, which is always. And then of course Joe Blow is like, you know, surprise. You know, suddenly, you know, you have all these gringos showing up and wanting to buy, you know, oohing and eyeing over his art. He may not have sold a piece in months, especially if it's in an isolated place. And so that's how we get along linguistically.
So you do research, reading books. The Julie Aguirre triptych is very important. My mentor, I found out, David Kunzel at UCLA, wrote this book on these Nicaraguan murals and artworks, and mentions Julie Aguirre. But you do the research either before and or after on some of these artists and the traditions.
Yeah, the well-known artists, you know, we try to just identify who, you know, their names before we leave, and generally you have no idea, though, where you're going to find them. You just show up in town like you're on a horse arriving in Dodge City, and you say, you know, where is so and so, and it's amazing how easy it is to find people.
Right.
And generally in the small villages, people just don't travel a lot. I mean, you know, it's not like us always
traveling.
You know, he's in New York today or something. You know, generally they're there, so you find them. But in a lot of cases. I mean, like Julia Aguirre, that was the Nicaraguan artist. I had no idea who she was, you know, in the 1980s, and she probably wasn't even very well known.
Right.
She was just doing amazing work, and we liked what we saw, and I think that's the standard that we always use. If we like it, and of course, if it's not wildly overpriced or something, you know, we'll try to buy it, assuming we have a place to put it, which is becoming an increasing problem in our house.
Right, that's right.
So.
You're to be commended for having the subject of women in the artworks and also art by women. It's really quite wonderful to see weavings and women's work and their stories.
Well, in the case of Julia Aguirre, her subject matter is often women.
Right.
She loves to paint women in sort of daily life situations in Nicaragua, and that's sort of her thing.
Yeah.
You know, but we didn't know much about her when we didn't know anything about her actually when we bought that painting. So
she's a leader, I think.
Now she
women.
is.
Yes, she's
That's
the
right.
head of the Painters Association of Nicaragua.
That's right. And of course, politics, you know, figures into this a lot. I mean, in Nicaragua, you have the artists who stayed loyal to the Sandinista, you know, government and regime. Then you have the other ones who were anti-Sandinista, and so there's friction in the art community, and there's friction in Haiti among artists. I mean, there's all kinds of cliques, and you know, you learn all this stuff when you start talking to people. This guy doesn't like this person, and but I try to stay away from that and just focus on
the art.
The art.
Right. Good policy.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you.